Welcome everyone to another episode of Open Mic with the MVP Marco. Obviously, it's a Chick Foley Show production. I'm the MVP Marco, of course. And I don't have any sponsors on the show, but I do like to do some little house cleaning before we get into the interview. And I got an awesome guest this time around. So my house cleaning is it's always the Pod Foundation. That's the crew that I'm a part of. That's a crew that Chick Foley, or Sheena Phelps and her husband Seth Phelps started. It was basically a collection of all the what we thought were the best content creators and podcasters in wrestling and in general. And obviously that consists of the Chick Foley Show with, like I mentioned, myself, Seth, Sheena, and Jordan Wells, the Fig God, as we call him, because he's great at fig hunting. We also have the coming down the aisle with J Bone. That's my partner on the Raw Down on the Turnbuckle Tavern feed. If you're familiar with Turnbuckle Tavern, you definitely should be. They're mainly they're the workhorses of the Pod Foundation. They literally have a podcast every single week. They don't stop. I'm actually, like I said, I'm in the inner workings. I'm a part of that. Like I said, I do their show called the Raw Down it's on YouTube Thursday nights at 8 live. Me and J Bone, we give our musings on the what's happening in the world of the WWE and a little bit of AEW if it pops up, if it kind of intersects, we'll do that. Last but not least, the Extra Cooler Show. Nick, and Matt in the Survivor Series team, they're a part of the crew as well. They just came back from hiatus. They're pumping out some shows right now. They're the nostalgic part of our crew, so they go back in the archives and they kind of give their commentary on old matches, old pay-per-views, what have you. And they do some current stuff as well, so definitely check them out. You can always find out all the new information, all the new episodes that pop up. You'll find on at Pod Foundation on IG, and then all of our individual Instagram accounts as well. Definitely follow all of us if you can. If not, like I said, Pod Foundation, and you'll get all the up-to-date news on what's happening with the Pod Foundation. So let me bring in my guests this time around. This gentleman is I'm going to say one of the best artists out there. Definitely go to his page. We do the plugs later on. You definitely won't be disappointed. I'm actually wearing one of his works right here on my shirt, Nation of Domination. Can't get the full picture in there, but as you can see, a pretty swell shirt. And this guy's a pretty swell guy. I'm gonna bring him on. Nolanium. How are you, sir? How are you doing?
Hey, Marco, what's up, dude?
Oh man. Like I said, definitely a fan. Get the rocking the shirt. Not trying to get any brownie points or anything like that. But like I was saying, it's I'm in Massachusetts. It's fall season. We're starting to break out the long sleeves, the hoodies, and all that stuff. So, and this is one of my favorite pieces here. This is from the Black Wrestling podcast, which I was talking to you a little bit before we hopped on. One of my favorite podcasts out there. How did you get connected with like working with them? Like, did they reach out to you for some of these pieces and things like that?
Yeah. So Matt Damon, he hit me up. Not Matt Damon.
Oh my god, I was like, what? Matt Damon.
No. This Matt Damon, in my opinion, is an upper echelon. So no, Matt hit me up. He shot me an email, and this was during COVID.
Yeah.
A lot of opportunities kind of opened up for me during COVID because a lot of people were thinking outside the box about some new things they could do. Yep. Some ways they could bring in revenue and also entice the fans and get some excitement going around. So Matt hit me up and he was like, dude, I want you to do a Nation of Domination shirt. I'm like, bro, I freaking love the Nation. Like, I still think about 98. I'm like sitting in front of my TV watching Raw, and I'm seeing all four of them in the middle of the ring, just stirring up that crowd, getting them all freaking fired up. And then watching The Rock come into his own, and then also Owen being a part of it, part of it on the outside was also really entertaining. But yeah, Matt reached out to me. I did the piece, and it blew up, man. Like all of a sudden, like they put it out there into the world, and I'm not saying how they put it out. I'm not saying I'm not saying what the means were of them putting it out, but they managed to sell a lot of shirts, and some of the people that I ended up seeing photos of wearing them, were people like Mercedes Moné.
Yep, I seen that.
Big E.
Yep.
And and then Ron Funches.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ron Funches ended up wearing it on stage for one of his comedy shows. So that was like, I was like, wow, I love the nation.
Especially when you come up with an idea like that, like just well, I mean, I kind of want to talk about the nation now that you brought it up, and just thinking because you just brought up all those different iterations of the nation of domination as it when it started up until when obviously The Rock took over and started his own crew. What's your favorite version of the nation of domination? Would you say?
I mean, I'm a huge mark for The Rock. I'm sorry, I'm a
Okay.
huge mark for The Rock. I thought it was I just thought it was really entertaining. I think the entire idea of the nation is super valid, even like the current era
Yeah.
of everything that's been going on, especially with during COVID, like Black Lives Matter and all
Yep.
that. I feel like something that has the weight of the nation now could be even greater than it was back in '98.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
also on the same token, man, that's some heavy stuff to like have
Mm.
at a wrestling show with like 8-year-olds and like 7-year-olds
Yeah.
in the
Yep.
audience. But I met Farouk for the first time, Ron Simmons,
Yep.
at WrestleCon in LA back in April. And I made this huge collage piece of all the black wrestlers that I had drawn over like the many
Okay.
years.
Yep.
So it had everybody. I mean, it had like little cutouts from the Nation shirt I did. It had some other stuff with, it had everyone. It had Jade Cargill in it. It had just had all these amazing black wrestlers that have really made a name for themselves over the past like 30, 40 years. And I gave it to Ron, and I wasn't asking for anything in return. It was just a gift. Wasn't asking for an autograph. I just said, hey man, you're someone I've watched my whole life. I really appreciate everything you've done. I mean, he was the first black world champ.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
huge. So I gave
Trailblazer.
it to him, and he just stared at it. He just like looked at it for like 5 minutes, and he didn't say damn or anything like that, but I don't know if he would have. But he was like super grateful, super, super nice. It was a really, really cool experience, dude.
Yeah, how's I kind of I'll get to my next question, but like you got to think like he's looking at that like that picture that you gave him, and it's like he's probably thinking in his mind like all like obviously like you said he's a trailblazer, the first world champion that was black, and like now
Yeah.
he's seeing all these people after him, all these athletes coming out. He's probably looking at it like the not that he's like responsible for all of them, but like he's probably looking at it like holy, like this is I not that I started it, but like this is like something that I kind of like started moving forward with all these all these like young athletes. I want to come into this business because of something that I did or something I've seen. Obviously, you could go backwards and go like Butch Reed, and you go
Right.
like Junkyard Dog and all that stuff. Um, but he was the one that like showed that it could happen. Like he won a world championship. He was the
Yeah.
face of a company when there weren't any at that time. There weren't any black black athletes that were the world champions of a wrestling organization. What not even Junkyard Dog. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
he was stuck in like the mid card area, but odd enough, he was like he was the most popular wrestler at that time. He was kind of like the not to, I hate to use it, but he was equivalent of Hulk Hogan at the time in popularity.
Yeah.
Even when he was at the WWE too, when he moved over there, the crowd just loved him. But they just didn't give him that like push to obviously win the championship. But so at least back in the '80s, there was a person that did it. That was Ron Simmons. Like he definitely blazed a trail for a lot of people and fans as well too. Not just the wrestlers, like a lot of like black kids like myself,
Yeah, man.
watching that and then watching like other wrestlers come up. You said to him, he moved over to WWE. Mark Henry, The Rock, D'Lo, all these guys like under his tutelage, and yeah, man, it was that I wouldn't I would like I'd probably freak out if I was in that position you were in. Were you like kind of like were you just like this is me, I'm the best at this. Here's my artwork. Or are you just like, holy crap, I'm standing next to
Well, it's a tricky thing, right? Like Ron, Ron's tenured. He was in a predominantly white industry.
Mhm.
Back in the '80s. He played the game.
Yep.
But he was respected and revered by all of his peers. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And when you're an artist like, I don't know if people can see me right now, but I'm as white as it comes.
Yeah.
But you have an artist come to you and they happen to be Caucasian like myself, but they're giving you a piece with like 30 plus African American wrestlers on it,
Yeah.
and letting you know, hey man, like I hold you in the utmost of reverence. I respect
Mhm.
you. I respect everything that all these other wrestlers have done as well. But I think the coolest thing is you're talking about being a fan, right?
Yep.
And seeing Ron do his thing. All those other wrestlers were fans too.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
that's super transformative. Like if you meet any wrestler in today's era, anyone that's been wrestling in the last 10 years, those guys are just as big of fans as we are.
Yeah, that's
They
right.
just they put the elbow grease in to like make it all happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But no, he was super, super generous. I gave the same print to Mark Henry, the Boogeyman, and Devon, and all of them were just like, whoa. I think the gravity or the weight hits you once you see everyone together. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
It's like I said, it has to. I mean, like I said, I can't read their minds, but just seeing something like that, and them being the veterans, the legends, of the industry, and them seeing like all these people like that, like that were there before them, there when they were there, and then after them, it definitely has to have some type of effect on
Yeah.
like how far they come. And obviously with the championship reigns, like obviously The Rock, Kofi Kingston, Bobby Lashley,
Mhm.
just to name a few there. And yeah, I mean, it would definitely be something that I would. I mean, if I was presented something like that, I'd probably be for it as well. I'd be like,
Yeah.
holy crap! But what other wrestlers or like stars have you ran into or run into or interacted with because of your artwork?
Well, I mean, there's lots of collaborations. It's a very collaborative type of business.
Yep.
So I think my first real foray into doing a collaborative artwork for a wrestler was with Hulk Hogan back in 2011, 2012.
Wow.
I helped them launch their beach shop in Clearwater. So we ended up
Huh.
having some phone conversations where we talk about some ideas and some concepts and what they were looking for. I'd send sketches and then we kind of go from there. And then it became its own thing, which was like its own thing. That like talking with Hulk Hogan over the phone, someone I had watched for,
Yeah.
decades, was just wild to me. But then as I started to kind of get into the industry proper and not dealing with like things that were outside of wrestling that were like tangential, like a beach shop,
Yeah.
um, my favorite interactions so far have been with Finn Balor, because
Okay.
he himself is also an artist.
Huh.
He draws, he does graffiti. He's a very talented graphic designer. If you actually look at some of the stuff he's done, um, and I've had a collaboration with him where we worked on a chalk line jacket together, and
Oh, okay.
that one was a lot of fun because he actually contributed his own artwork for it. He actually did a special sketch of him doing the finger guns, and that's on the sleeves of the jacket.
That's awesome.
And that's something you can't find on any piece of WWE merch anywhere else. I have a lot of freedom, if I'm not going to kind of go down the rabbit hole, but I do a lot of artwork for licensing. So like,
Yeah.
WWE, they have their own team of artists that works on stuff for the shop.
Yep.
But a lot of what I do is for licensing. So different companies that do different WWE products.
Yep.
Roosevelt's, Chalkline, 500 Level, Rock'em Socks. There's a little more freedom there. And so like, I actually have the chutzpah to, DM these guys and be like, hey, I need some feedback on this product I'm doing for you. And they'll be honest with me.
Yeah.
Whereas if the WWE shop did that, I don't know what kind of conversation they'd be having. But
Okay.
yeah, but Finn Balor is awesome. Adam Copeland, as we know him now, but
Yep.
at the time Edge,
Yep.
collaborated with him, and that was really fun as well. Did a great couple shirt for him and Beth. And Edge was super complimentary, super awesome to work with on that one too. So yeah, it's just really cool. It's really Mercedes Moné. Back when she was Sasha Banks, I did a shirt for her and Naomi. Didn't come out because they ended up leaving.
Wait, hold on. Was that the shirt? Was that the Was that the one with their faces, or was that a different one?
No, there was one that was going to launch 2 weeks later that I did,
Okay. Yeah,
and
okay.
and Mercedes actually reached out to me on that one on her own,
Yeah,
and it was one of those kind of like backdoor deals where sometimes WWE isn't too hot on wrestlers reaching out to artists without their approval, but
I can see that.
yeah, in this instance, Mercedes reached out and she was like, "Hey, you did some stuff, some fan art of me that I really liked. It'd be really fun to collaborate on something."
Yeah.
And and then timing didn't work out on that one, but there's a whole world of shirts, man, that have been created and designed that have never made it out there into the world.
That you were a part of as well. That you
I think every wrestling artist,
okay.
I'm sure every wrestling artist has a
Ye-
story they can tell you about that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, actually, you're right. I did when I did interview uh extra cooler Nick, he did mention that obviously he's been he kind of does the same thing, works with like wrestlers directly and kind of gets like license and stuff. And I think he did say there was a few times where he submitted something and then it got rejected or it got canceled or something happened with like a contract within whatever company and then they say if it was like a legend or something like that and the legends deal was over and he was in the
Yeah.
middle of putting something out for like that company and it just canceled. They got rid of the licensing and that's it. That has to be like a is that a like a bummer to you? Does that like kind of does that like kind of discredit like anything you do, or do you just like this is an opportunity that I'm missing? Now I can just move along and do it. How does that affect you when that happens?
I think it's a good story to tell. I mean, that's the most important thing. I think it's a really good story to tell because you're building relationships this whole time, and I think I
Yep.
think I think the relationship building is probably the most important part of what I do.
Hmm.
But it just kind of gives you an idea of how many other industries deal with artists
Yeah.
where their stuff doesn't see the light of day. Like think about Marvel concept designers, the guys that like create the outfits for the Avengers.
True.
They literally like painstakingly create like 30 different outfits for each character, but only one like sees the light of day.
Yeah.
So I feel like on that end, I'm getting like the easy,
Yeah.
the easy
That's
deal.
that is true.
But it's a storyline driven business, and the fact of the matter is, what the wrestlers and the writers and the producers are working on, the artists might not be privy to any of those things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, obviously, no one could have predicted Naomi and Mercedes leaving in the manner they did.
Yeah.
But I'm even working on stuff right now that should be coming out like soon that may or may not see the light of day because of the ebb and flow of the storyline.
Okay. Wow. That's
Yes.
odd. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, that's actually true because obviously, if you are working in the wrestling world, storylines change. People move around in different spots. People
Yeah.
might leave the company and go to another company.
Or they might
So if you're in the middle,
turn.
that might be that might be a heel turn, and you're like, I
Yeah.
was just doing a T-shirt for this guy. What the hell? Um, I was actually I want to go back to the Finn Balor thing because that's actually a good kind of like point to pivot to wrestlers that are artists. And
Yeah.
I didn't know he was one, but I knew of like Jerry Lawler,
Hmm.
because he if he's at signings and stuff like that, he'll do like artwork and stuff for people. And
Yeah.
Bret Hart too.
Yeah.
I remember just thinking with referencing Extra Cooler, he started drawing because of Bret Hart's drawings. He copied how Bret Hart drew, like his
Yeah.
cartoons and stuff. How did you start? What was your art style at the beginning? Did you copy anyone, or did you have your own type of art style when you started?
So my background is predominantly caricatures. Like I started drawing caricatures, and that
Okay.
actually my primary business, how I make my living and pay my mortgage and all that, is I own a caricature company out here in Seattle. But that style was very much steeped in animation and comic books.
Yep.
So like comic books obviously is like very much tangential to wrestling.
Yep.
Larger than life characters with colorful costumes and pageantry,
Yep.
good versus evil, you know,
Yep.
forged
Factions.
alliances. um, So I drew inspiration from a lot of comic book artists. If you look at my earlier stuff when I first started doing wrestling art, like maybe back in 2014, a lot of my stuff was more cartoony, a lot more exaggerated.
Okay.
But as I started to kind of see what people were more into and what the wrestlers were really gravitating towards, I kind of leaned more towards the comic book style and focused more on that and more on making it dynamic and high concept.
Awesome. So when I look at when I look at your art style, I don't know why for me it kind of reminds me of like a this kind of like a old school reference. Hopefully if you're listening out there, definitely look them up if you don't. It kind of reminds me of like two people for some reason. I don't know why I see this. Jack Kirby and do you know who Eric Larson is?
Yeah, I know.
Comic book art-
Savage Dragon.
Yes, yeah. So like your art style kind of reminds me of those two, like an amalgam of both of those art styles for some reason. When I see some of your artwork, just how the characters like pop, like the just
Oh,
the like it's like maybe like like the outlines of the characters, just the way they look. I don't know. Every time I see it, it kind of just reminds me of those two. If they were to like combine their art styles for some reason, and that's what it looks like to me. That's how I interpret your art anyway. I mean, that's
that's a massive compliment, man. That really is. I mean, seriously, it's like those guys were both trailblazers in their own respective ways. Like Jack Kirby defined the entire look of Marvel Comics,
yep.
and Eric Larson's run on Spider-Man was one of
Oh
my
my
favorite
god.
runs
Oh,
of
of
all time.
course. Talk
Like
about
I
that all day.
subscribed back when he was doing it. I was like, I couldn't wait for the next issue to show up on my doorstep back when they
Oh
did
yeah.
stuff like that. No, it's a huge compliment. That's a lot of praise. I draw a lot of influence from those guys. Greg Capullo is one.
Oh, I love him.
I'm a huge fan of his. I'm actually looking at a piece I did that was inspired by his work, and I absolutely love his stuff too. Jim Lee,
I love Jim
obviously,
Lee.
yeah, he's. I think I'm a little better drawing faces than Jim Lee, but he's got me beat on everything else.
Yeah, I actually have man, I could this is crazy because I could actually talk comics with someone now. I actually have I have his DC art book that he came out with, the art of Jim Lee or whatever it's called. And it's like the Barnes and Noble Icon edition. It's not any of his obviously Marvel stuff, it's all his
Yeah,
DC and his DC stuff. And yeah, you're right, man. As far as like the bodies and stuff like that, the muscles, like he's like, and it shows like the sketches in there and stuff like that of like obviously like Superman, Batman, all the DC characters, and then like from his company, the with the Wildcats and all that stuff.
yeah.
Like yeah, his art style is probably like my favorite art style, but I do love also I love Todd McFarlane as well.
Mhm.
He's oh man, like I can watch him like do his like he does. I'm not sure if he still does them on his Instagram because my algorithm's all messed up now. But he used to do like quick like 1 minute. Like I'm gonna draw this for you real quick, and it would
Yeah.
just look like effortless, and it would just look exactly like how it would like on a printed comic. You're like, how the hell does this guy do that? Like, do you have who's your like favorite? If you have to pinpoint like a favorite comic artist, who would that be for you at
Well,
all time?
I can tell you this. Like back in the day, I was a huge McFarlane fan. Um, if I were to talk about artists now, I would probably say there's an artist named Ryan Otley, and
Okay.
he did pretty much all of the entire run of Invincible, except for the
Oh, okay. Yes. Yep.
7 issues. Now he kind of does Amazing Spidey every once in a while. He had like a really healthy run on there. But that's a guy I look at his stuff and I'm just like floored. It's just
Yeah, he's
absolutely
awesome.
stunning and amazing. So Ryan Otley's a big one. Obviously, I'm still going to stand with Greg Capullo. His run on Batman with Scott Snyder
Yeah,
was elite
awesome.
level. That was one of the best runs I've ever read. Um, and then Jim Lee, obviously, I have his whole X-Men run, and I love everything he does with DC. Oh man, there's so many artists right now that I'm really high on. Ed McGuinness was a guy that started on Deadpool back in the
Oh
early
yeah. Yep.
2000s,
That's right.
and then he jumped over to Superman, and now he's doing Avengers. I love his hyper exaggerated style. He's kind of like whittled it down a little bit to be a little bit more basic now. But back in the day, he would just plump everyone up, make them super jacked.
Yeah.
He was
is
he was freaking awesome.
is he like a he's yeah, I mean obviously he's not like a like a Rob Liefeld with the exaggerated.
Oh, no, dude, can't even go there, man. I
He's
mean,
an acquired taste. Right.
yeah,
I was a fan of the when he took over, obviously X-Force, well, New Mutants back in the early '90s, and then like the X-Force and all that stuff. And
yeah,
I was a fan then, but obviously you get older and you're like, okay, that's
yeah. And
interesting artwork.
you also hear some of these guys talk, and you're like, okay, man, you should
Yeah.
probably just focus on drawing. You know,
Oh
he's like
man,
the Ryback of comic book artists. You know,
he
he's
might
like,
be. That's a good actually comparison. I didn't even think of that for
yeah, he's the Sean Morley of comic book
yeah,
artists.
he's oh man, I mean the other thing about that too is like he was a part of that whole crew where they all like got up and left Marvel and created Image Comics and stuff like that. That whole thing.
Yeah,
Definitely if you haven't, I'm not sure if it's still on. I think it's still on YouTube. They had the it's for free, the documentary about it.
the
I'm
Image
not sure. I don't think
Revolution.
yeah, I don't think is Rob Liefeld on it. I don't think he's on it.
No,
I think
Rob's on it,
he's
and
who's so
you can also buy it on Apple on
oh,
iTunes.
okay.
You can buy it on because I bought it. It was like $6.
Okay, I don't remember him being on it for some reason, but I remember them just like, they were like pop culture, like they were hanging out like freaking like rappers and
Yeah,
like movie stars and
they were the
all that crazy
NWO,
stuff.
dude. They were the NWO of comic book artists.
Pretty much, yeah. They were like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, they just got up and kind of shook the game up, and they're still like, obviously they they changed everything about the comic industry, about
Yeah,
like being a high paid artist and knowing your worth, and they did
yeah,
prove their worth by creating a company and creating like I mean, Spawn
yeah.
is like, I mean,
And then they got
his
too big, too quick, and then
yeah, exactly. The Mark Silvestri, that's another artist I really grew up to love because he did the Wolverine comics
yeah,
back in
yeah,
the day, and I just love his art style. I think it was a lot of his art style is kind of similar to Jim Lee's, but obviously Jim Lee's a little bit more, you know, for me more advanced than Mark Silvestri, but that's obviously in my own opinion. But yeah, man, I could talk about comics all day. And you actually brought up a good point about the correlation between wrestling and comic books and stuff like that. Do you see a world where that's going to come back? Because remember, like they had the Boom Comics, and the
yeah, yeah.
WWE was doing comic books and stuff like that. Do you see that coming back again, or having any type of like? Because there's always those like one-off things, like WCW did it back in the day, WWF did
Yeah,
it, and Warrior had his own comic at one point. Like, do you see that like as a thing coming back, or is that like a dead issue?
I think it's like a I think that's a part of a bygone era. I mean, I
Mhm.
hate to say that because they are so like synergistic. You know, I try not to use that word too much, but that definitely is the word I would use for comics and wrestling. No, I think comic book fans now are very sophisticated and they know what they want. And what I do appreciate about comic books right now is that there's people out there that are creating wrestling based comics, but they're not steeped in the world of like AEW or WWE. Like,
Yes,
you know what I mean? Like, listen, for me, if I want to get my AEW fix or my WWE fix of those characters, of those wrestlers, I'm just going to watch the show.
true.
It's on every freaking week.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So like that's enough for me. But if someone's creating something that is unique in its own right, that's based in the world of wrestling with all new and all original characters, I think that is way more enticing to me as a comic book reader than having to read like a giant, one issue book about the Shield. You know,
yeah, true.
I watched The Shield for 4 years.
Yeah.
I don't need to read a whole comic book about it, about stuff that didn't happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. That makes sense.
So it's like I think the imagery is powerful, and it blows my mind that some of the artwork that was used for the Boom comics was never used for T-shirts or never used for
Yeah,
any merch or anything like that. Because some of that stuff, I mean, it's better than a lot of the things I've done, and it's certainly better than a lot of things I've seen in the stores.
hmm
I mean, there's so many amazing pieces of art that were created as a byproduct of that series that could have been used for lunch boxes, for the backings of action figures, all this cool
Yep.
stuff, and it was just limited solely to the comic books.
Yeah, I actually love the fact that in the just a pivot to the artwork being on like action figures on Elite 100. They had they had the drawings on the back. They had I think it was it Rob Bartlett, I believe, was the
John
artist.
Bartlett, John,
Yeah, run.
yeah,
Yeah, John, yeah. So they had those on the back, and I like instead of having like the pictures on those on figure, they should do that. They should switch to like
yeah.
more of like an animated style on action figures because it's already you're already kind of playing in that world with the action figure. What's the going with the extra step and making the whole packaging
Yeah.
kind of like action figure with like the comic art style and that type of stuff. So
It
that's
helps
actually
sell it. It helps sell it way more. It's
yeah,
like you look at a photo of Drew McIntyre and then you see the action figure. All it makes me think about is how much the action figure doesn't look like Drew McIntyre.
exactly. Yeah.
If you have like a cool piece of art that's like a little more, not hyper real, but a little bit more stylized, then the people can kind of let go of the fact that it doesn't look quite like Drew McIntyre, and they could be like, oh hell yeah, this is like,
Yeah.
this is a really cool thing. So like, yeah, the stuff that John did, absolutely incredible. The stuff that Mel Coleman's doing for Ring of Honor,
Oh man.
that's some limited edition stuff coming out right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so happy that they managed to like bring her on, because what she does is very much for that world, and now
Yeah.
she can help contribute to that and make it a reality.
Yeah, I've been trying to reach out to her to get her on as well. I want to speak to her because her like everyone I follow a lot of different like artists and stuff like that, and everyone has their own style of art, and everyone
Yeah,
approaches obviously wrestling because that's the that's the nucleus of everybody that I follow, and everyone has their own interpretation of what that wrestler or that entity looks like, which is I think is fascinating. Like not everybody is the same when it comes to drawing that certain person. Can you imagine like just going back to like the comic book? Imagine like creating like a Seth Rollins comic now that he's wearing all these like
oh
crazy like gear and all these like suits and stuff like that. Just imagine him as a comic book character. Like obviously
dude,
they reference him to the Joker, like
yeah.
having him as a bad guy, like a villain in a comic, and having him like every you could as an artist you can like come up with literally anything like for him to wear. You could put your imagination to like its limits.
If any wrestler deserves their own Barbie with all of the costume options and all that, it's Seth
Like,
Rollins. Like seriously, like that and it's what an amazing pivot for his character too, because he just went all the way and owned it. And it's the funniest thing about Seth Rollins is he kind of joked about that, at the beginning when he was making the shift to
yeah,
being like the visionary to what he's doing now. He kind of joked about it like that was a bad thing. And then like as he like got wilder and wilder and wilder, people just freaking went nuts for it. It
yeah,
just goes to show like how cool, like getting out of your comfort zone is exactly what wrestling's made for. It's like people will harp on McMahon for making someone do like a comedy, storyline or this, that, or the other thing, but that was his way of getting you to shake off your anxiety
yep,
and just own the fact that if you're over and you're good at what you do, it doesn't matter what the hell you're doing. You're going to get over and you're going to make it work.
yeah. No, you're right. That actually that's a good point because I didn't even a lot of people don't think that way when it comes to McMahon and his choice of gimmicks for wrestlers and stuff like that. But that's just it. It's hey, if you can make this work and you can get it over with the fans, and that's it. You go out there and present it, and obviously
Yeah.
if it fails, it fails. If it doesn't, then now you have the opportunity to like move on to to something else, move on to a different type of gimmick or kind of transition
Yeah.
into a new thing. So
I mean, think
actually, that's a
about
good
where LA
point.
Knight was a year ago, right? Like
Yeah,
I saw the little graphic. It said October 7th, 2022 is when Max Dupree
yeah,
declared that he was going to be LA Knight again, right? And it's been a year and he's over like Rover, like he's freaking
yeah,
nuts. But it's like, yes, he was placed in that role, and let's be honest, that role probably was never going to work out. But I think it just goes to show that, you know, if the performer is invested and they're willing to give it the best go they've got,
Yeah,
you know, listen, nobody's going to make the Red Rooster a world champion, right?
exactly.
But like,
That's true.
if Red Rooster can show that he can get over with the crowd and the audience, then maybe he can be transitioned into being like, you know, the Red Rocket, or I mean, that's a terrible word. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, the,
That's an attitude era guy, the red.
yeah, that's definitely an attitude. Yeah, but no, you know what I mean. Like they
Yeah.
can transition them into something else.
Yeah, no, definitely. So let's get. I want to kind of pivot to your beginnings with wrestling. We'll say so. Where was your when you started art when you started doing your art was did you have wrestling in mind, or did you have when you were doing your artwork, was it in a different direction? Like you said, you did say you're doing caricatures and stuff
Yeah,
like that, but was wrestling always like a part of that like journey, or was that something that came along afterwards?
not always. No, when I was younger, so I had a friend. His name was Kenny, and he was a huge Hulk Hogan fan. I think this was when I was like 8 or 9. And I remember it was when Earthquake broke Hogan's ribs,
Oh man,
and we
yeah,
all sent letters to the Hulkster, and we
yep,
all got the postcard back with like the printed on, you know, signature and all that. And that's kind of what got me into the world of wrestling and got me into the stories and everything like that. And in WrestleMania 6, I tell everyone this, but WrestleMania 6 is when I really started to like dive in and really get invested in it.
yeah.
But but no, my art was never like super wrestling centric. I was still like very much steeped in comic books and all that. It wasn't until when I started drawing caricatures when I was 19, we had a wall of celebrity demos that we would use to kind of like sell our services to the customers.
Yep.
So to paint a picture for you, you had a character stand, you know, you've got these demos of like celebrities behind you. So, you know, you'll have pop stars, you'll have movie stars. Well, I was the only weirdo that was drawing pro wrestlers and heavy metal bands. Like those are like the two things I did. So like, you know, you'd have like Tupac here, you'd have NSYNC over here, and then all of a sudden you'd have Stone Cold Steve Austin right there. And so that started to like, you know, get me a little bit more into the idea of doing, you know, wrestling as art, but I didn't really like dive head first into it until 2012 when I started working with Hulk Hogan. Interestingly enough, it was a caricature that I drew of him that he saw that led to him contacting me for that gig.
That's what that was actually going to be my next question to you. Like, how did the like the with Hulk Hogan, how that all come about? But that's that. So he reached out to you and was like, hey, brother.
Pretty much, yeah, yeah. So it's that maybe that goes to show like it doesn't matter what form of art you dive into.
Yep.
If the passion's there and the execution's there, it'll lead to other things. So I did this caricature of Hulk Hogan, you know, doing like, you know,
Yeah, the pose.
super exaggerated, like really big, really muscular and beefy. It was like back in 2007. And I guess him and his buddy Ron were doing like a Google search, and they were trying to find someone that could kind of match this old NWO shirt that was done. Because
Okay.
that was the idea he had for his logo for his beat shop. So, anyways, the long and short of it is I get a call from them. At first, it was his friend Ron. And I was like, listen, dude, I'm not going to do anything until I hear from the man himself. And then I get the phone call from the Hulkster himself,
That's
and
crazy.
which is absolutely nuts. And it's like you can't fake a voice like that. And so, anyways, the long and short of it is, you know, we had a really good conversation. He had some wild ideas he threw at me. We collaborated. We made some really cool things happen, and a great relationship was forged. And to this day, like we still will every now and then, you know, trade messages and say hi or whatever. But he was an amazing collaborator, and it was really fun working on that stuff. And that helped me gain the confidence,
Mm.
which is very huge as an artist. When you get that, that's when you can almost be unstoppable when you get to that point.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine. I can't even imagine. Someone just calling me out of the blue and saying like, hey, could you do this for me? Could you like We could like Roman Reigns gives you a call and says, "Hey, I seen your artwork. You want to you want to
Yeah,
draw
that would
some
be nuts.
bloodline stuff for me?"
That would be absolutely nuts if Roman Reigns called me. Like I would, at this point, I'd be like, "Holy shit, it's Roman Reigns." Um, yeah, so that kind of like got me a little bit more confident, a little. It helped me lean a little bit more towards that world. Like I had already started a business out here doing caricatures, and I was actually starting to like do really well with it and gain a lot of traction. And the money part wasn't really something I was that concerned with because I already
Yeah,
had that stability. But there's always that. I think Rocky Balboa said it best in the movie of the same name. He's like, "There's this monster inside of me that won't stop," you know? And so for me, that monster was I'm such a huge fan. I've been watching this form of entertainment for decades now, and I want to find a way to connect with people that are also into it.
mm,
And that just led to like this almost like Pandora's box, especially once Instagram started to pick up steam. You know, I started to like get traction with Chris Jericho and then Sheamus and then all these other wrestlers. And it got to a point where it was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna start like cold messaging these companies
yeah,
and just say, hey, like this is a piece that had this many eyes on it and this many people liked it. Imagine if that was like a jacket, or
yeah,
imagine if that was like a shirt. Like, you know, I've already created the art. It's already done.
yeah.
So like let's try and figure it out and you know and figure out like a way for me to monetize it and make money and you guys can make your money too. So Chalkline really kind of helped me launch off with a series of jackets with the Fanimation jackets.
Yeah, yep. Those are awesome.
They were so much fun, man. Like, 'cause I got to do one for Kane, for Alexa Bliss, for Finn, for Undertaker, Triple H. All this was COVID, man. You
That's
know,
insane.
I'm
Yeah.
just sitting. I'm just sitting around. I'm not drawing characters out at the Space Needle because it's all closed. So I'm just sitting in my
Dude,
house, just like, yeah, throw it at me. I'll do it.
that's crazy, man. That I can't even I can't even like fathom that. Like I asked extra cooler when he was on, I was like, what's it like actually, we all, have podcasts and there's a lot of like, content creators out there, but I asked him, I was like, what is it like to actually have a talent that you can actually use and actually make money off of? Like, what is that like? That's
Yeah.
that must be like like you said, it's almost like I feel like I have some type of like superpower where I could like, do anything I wanted to do with that type of art. I mean, I used to draw when I was like younger and stuff like that. I never stuck with it, but that was always something that I always like wanted to, be a part of is, some type of like, artistry in some type of way, some type of expressive form of things. And this is pretty much what I came up with, just me on my computer talking to people. So that's and
Hey,
talking
listen, man.
wrestle with a bunch with different people. But yeah, I think the other part of that too is I kind of want to pivot to this is like social media, the community, like the artist community, like how does that work? Is it like is it like is it friendly? Is it like cutthroat? Is it is it do you have like other artist friends on social media and stuff like that? Because I spoke
Yes.
to who was it? Figure Kingdom, who's a art not artist, he's a figure photographer, you know, and he said when he started, like it was like, it was a he had some other figure photographers that were like they all helped each other out and promote each other, but then there was others that were like trying to undercut or trying
Right.
to like put people under throw people under the bus, all that type of thing. So like, how is that? Is that the same thing with artists? Or do you guys kind of like do you have like other artist friends on social media that you reach out to that you kind of like promote, help out? Is it the
Yeah.
same way? Okay.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because I'll get into like the pricing and stuff a little bit later, but there's a really healthy art community on Instagram and Twitter.
Yep.
And I have been very lucky and very fortunate to meet and establish connections with a lot of these people. And as you get to know everyone and as you get to see their work and you get to see the things that they've done, part of the responsibility that we all kind of take on once we kind of get into the professional realm is we trade stories,
Okay.
We talk about experiences, but most important of all, we try to relay to one another ways to avoid the negative experiences
Mm.
and ways to coach each other to be. I'm not going to say the words professional because that's not the right word. The word is to carry yourself in a manner that would elicit more business.
Okay.
And so there are artists that do their own thing, and that's fine. And they might talk whatever smack they want about other artists. Those guys are never the ones that are doing like the really cool, high profile stuff.
Yep.
Nobody wants someone talking smack about other artists. It's just not same in the wrestling world. But yes, we have a great community. It's very tight knit. I actually have used several wrestling artists that I've met online for shirts.
Okay.
Juan Ortiz of the Dead.
Mm.
I brought him on to work on an Undertaker shirt for Roosevelt during Mania. His one dream was to do an Undertaker shirt.
That's awesome.
So like I was given the task of art directing a WrestleMania series for Roosevelt's, and John Bartlett was someone that I always wanted to collaborate with, and I'm so happy I did. And Roosevelt's is very happy I did as well because now he's doing stuff for them, like Star Wars stuff, and he's still doing WWE stuff for them. But Juan was one of those guys where, he's got a very fringe, very punk rock kind of
Mm.
style. He's worked with everyone under the sun on the independents, but that 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 one white whale was always the Undertaker for him.
Yeah.
So getting him on board on an Undertaker shirt was very gratifying because he got to realize his dream. He created a badass shirt that I wear like once a week. But my proudest moment is a collaboration we did for Scott Hall after he passed away. Roosevelt's did a tribute shirt
Oh
where,
yeah, I seen that. Yep.
yeah. So essentially, Roosevelt said, "Hey, listen, you're tight in this community. Can you find 18 artists? Like, here's our budget. Can you find 18 artists, each depicting Scott Hall in a different point in his career? All their vision, 100%. We're not going to edit it. We're not going to tweak anything." And so, might have been 2 years ago, I started an Instagram group called the Wrestling Artist Collective, where we all got together and traded stories and all that. It's during COVID, it was just a
Yeah.
great way to connect with everybody. But I used that as a forum to bring in people to work on the Scott Hall shirt. So if you look at the Scott Hall shirt, it's littered with different interpretations of him by
That's
18
awesome.
different artists, and it's incredible. So yeah, that's how we help each other out. It's like, and also if a wrestler wants something specific that artist A can't do, they'll
Okay.
say, "Well, hey, I know someone that's their wheelhouse. That's what they're into.
I get it.
Think about me for your next shirt, but how about for this shirt, I forward you over to this person, and then they can work on it for you."
Yeah, that's awesome. Because yeah, like I said, it just like I said, just talking to like Figure Kingdom and his like him saying like it was like there are photographers out there that help each other out, and then there's ones that don't, and they're like
Yeah,
they do they they do their own thing, or they just don't try to promote. And one of the things I loved about about Chick Foley and stuff like that when I first started following way back in the day, and then understanding her story later on, like her idea was to once she got like if she got big, she was going to start promoting you know people that she followed or people that she's seen on social media, because back in like the early like 2010s, there wasn't 20, I think it was like around 2013, 2014, there weren't many like really wrestling dedicated like pages on Instagram. Obviously you had
right.
like the like the actual companies and stuff like that, but as far as like you know the community doing it, there wasn't really anything. You had like I think you had Chick Foley, you had Wrestling Classic. I think there was a few others at the time, but
Nicole
they would all
Santa.
promote each other. They would all help each other out. Like I think when I talked to Justin about it on his episode, he's said Sheena bought one of my shirts, the Wrestling Classic shirts, and she wore it on her Instagram account and promoted me. And I was like, and that's how I found his page, through her, because I was
Yeah,
following her and I seen that. I was like, oh, what's the Wrestling Classic? And I clicked on it, started following. I was like, oh my god, this guy's amazing. So like that's what they did at the beginning. They all started promoting each other, and when I talked at the beginning with the Pod Foundation, that's pretty much what she wanted to do was like find like people that they listen to, other podcasts, and see if they wanted to like try to like help each other out, help promote each other, help
Yeah.
do cross shows or whatever. Like, and it ended up me, like I said, me being on like the Turnbuckle Tavern, being on their feed now. I'm like a part of one of their shows. Obviously, my loyalty is with Sheena and the Chick Foley show, but it allowed me to be on there, be a few of their shows, and they're like, hey, you want to be on our WWE show, because they're more indie AEW oriented with a lot of their shows. So they
Yeah.
want to do like a WWE centric show. So they're like, hey, we're gonna put you and so together, and and that was like that type of like community stuff, and just doing this show in particular, and just being reaching out to people, making those connections and stuff like that. I've met a ton of awesome people through just doing this show, you included. I mean, I followed you forever, but
It's
just
huge
like
though, right? Like it's a
yeah,
big thing.
it's amazing. Like, I mean, I would, it's great when you're able to see other people like flourish, and
Yeah.
say you're doing this interview now, and then like tomorrow it's like Nolan signed with WWE as an exclusive artist. I'm like, holy crap, that's crazy! I just had him on my show.
I'm having too much fun as a free
Yeah,
agent.
I
Man.
know, I know. would you consider doing that? Like, would you consider
No,
like
never.
signing a contract, nothing like that, like being exclusive to
No,
like a brand or a company? No.
not at all. Not at all. I've got a company. I've got my own
Okay.
company, and we're doing great, and I'm very happy with it. This for me is fun. And if it became my full-time job, I don't necessarily know how much fun that would be.
Yeah, that's true.
And to those that are grinding it out and that's what they're doing full time, more power to you. But for me, this is all the icing on the cake. You know what I mean? Like I've got everything I could ever want as a human. I've got a beautiful family. I've got financial stability. I've got a company I'm very proud of. I've got artists under me that I'm incredibly proud of. But to be able to kind of jump into this world and just have fun and play around, I'm like, that's where the magic is for me. And I think if it was something where they would bring me in full time and I had to do it year round and I'd have to deal with all these different concepts, it just wouldn't. I just don't think it would be for me. So yeah, I love working with the licensees too, because you have so much more freedom when you're working with all these like, for example, Roosevelt's. I know I've mentioned them a few times. They do amazing pattern shirts. They're high
awesome
quality, but they ask me what I want to do. You know what I mean? Like they're like, okay, SummerSlam's up. What do you want to do? And I'll say, I haven't done a Bret Hart shirt. Can I do a Bret Hart shirt? And they'll say, yeah. I'm like, great. But like WWE, they're never going to ask me what I want to do. They're going to just say, okay, well, here's the lineup. Here's what we got going on. This is what we want. You have to do it this style, this way. Have it to us in 2 weeks, and then go from there. And that's not how I like to operate.
Yeah. See, actually, that makes sense. X. I like, I like collaborating with like, different, artists and stuff like that on stuff like, just because Extra Cooler Nick is a part of our group. Like he pretty much did all of our logos. Not these ones here, the Pod Foundation logo he did, but like he's a great, like he does great logos and stuff like that. So like, being able to work with him and like, message him back and forth, like, send him an idea, like, hey, I have an idea for this. How can you work this? And he'll like, send me a sample, and I'll be like, can we change this up? And just like having that like, ability to just like be able to interact with someone like that, and have them actually be able to put your ideas to, to paper or screen, if you want to use that. Like that's insane. Like just, if we were to collaborate, if I was to like, message you one day, hey, I'm thinking of, a character of myself, but like, I want to look like a superhero. I want to like something like that. And just going back and forth and being able to, be able to speak to you and actually try to put my ideas into play. And then you come back with something. And that's like
exciting.
yeah, exciting beyond my imagination. Like that's exciting to me. Like
Yeah.
just knowing that like I had that like input into it. Like if you
Yeah.
see a lot of the logos, like I said, it's pretty much me working with him, creating a lot of pretty much all the Chick Foley show logos, like all the different variations of it. We ended up going with Chalkline. They ended up making us shorts. We ended up taking all his logos and putting them like doing like a short pattern thing.
Mhm.
So we actually have Chalkline short. They're not for sale, but we all have our own things with all the logos on it. I'm like, holy crap, all these logos. I actually, I was a part of these. I like
Yeah, you had
help.
a part of that. Yeah.
Yeah, help. And it's crazy just to like see something like that. Like, and like you said, with the collective that you have with all the artists, bringing them on, and they get the same feel. They go, oh my god, I worked on this. This is crazy.
Yeah.
Is there anything out there that you've worked on that like that you actually see and you're like, holy crap, this is actually, you know, besides like the shirts and stuff we talk well, this one in particular. But is
Yeah.
there other pieces of art besides? It doesn't have to be wrestling; it could be anything else.
Most of the stuff I have out in the wild is wrestling stuff. Like I remember I went to SummerSlam in Vegas. It was when Cena and Reigns were main eventing,
Okay.
and I show up and I'm starting to like see things that I worked on, like just
Mm.
fans wearing them. And let me be real with you, dude. The moment you go up to someone and you're like, "Hey, man, I designed that," they're gonna be
Yeah,
like,
that's weird.
"Okay,
Yeah,
buddy." So now I just like enjoy the moment. I might snap a photo or whatever and just be like, "Hey, that's a cool thing." But no, I was at SummerSlam in Vegas and I saw a few people wearing my Austin Rock WrestleMania 17
ooh,
Roosevelt's design.
that's a sick one.
I saw an NWO reunion shirt I worked on for Hogan back in like 2019. And then I saw a Macho Man shirt I did. And I was just like, oh, this is really cool. Like it just feels good because the one thing that goes through your brain when you design this stuff is, okay, who's gonna wear this? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, are people actually going to buy this? So like, yeah, you'll see it up on the shop, you'll see it online, you'll see them hype it up and promote it, but it's never really real to you as a designer or an artist until you actually see people wearing it.
yeah,
And so that was when it really hit me for the first time. And then I've been to shows since then where I've seen like my work, or I've seen my buddy Hal's work, or
yeah.
my friend Angie's work on a shirt, or even like something Mel did. Like when I was at Wrestle Dream last week, Mel did this Last Supper spread.
Yes,
You
that's
know,
an awesome piece, man.
it,
That's
it was incredible. Like she put so much work and love into it, and to see that and to see the way it's being implemented, that was like really thrilling for me. I can only imagine what she feels like when she's there and she gets to see it, or if someone is messaging her saying like I took a photo and I was like, there it
yeah,
is.
that's crazy.
But that's the thrill for what we do. It's like it's one thing to work with a wrestler, it's one thing to meet a wrestler and collaborate with them, but to know that the fan base is actually embracing it and that they're
Yeah,
into it and that they're wearing like a cool piece of clothing, like to me, that's where the thrill is.
yeah. And I'm one of those people that I have no like problem with wearing things like I don't have to be at a wrestling event to wear like my my wrestling shirts or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I just go right to the I'll go anywhere with wearing this because this is a it's just like it's a conversation starter
Well,
too.
that's a dope
For,
sweater, man. You should
for
wear that everywhere.
no, I do wear it. I wear it a lot. No, but the other thing too is like a lot of people like if if they're not watching wrestling now, like a lot of people watch Attitude Era Wrestling, so they see
Yeah.
something like this, they're gonna double take. It's same thing when they an NWO shirts like Out in the Wild or Austin
Mhm.
316 shirt. Like people are gonna look and be like they're gonna acknowledge it. Like something like this, you see something like this, it's just this is a badass design. Like I mean, it was a badass crew anyway. We talked about
Well,
that at the
but they
beginning,
but they
but
never made a lot of shirts for the nation in the first place.
that's
Like,
another yeah.
the nation deserves their time in the sun. It kind of sucks that everyone's at different companies right now because they can't necessarily do that at the moment. But
Yeah.
that's the beauty of bootlegs, baby.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm waiting for the day when they I mean, hopefully, they have to be at some point in the WWE Hall of Fame, like
Oh
just to
yeah,
see
for
all those
sure, man.
guys together on stage and, you know, sharing their stories and stuff like that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, they're
Um,
shooing.
what are your interests besides artwork, wrestling? Are you infatuated with anything else besides um those two
Yeah,
things?
yeah, I've got tons of interests. Like, I love hiking. I live in Seattle, so we're really close to a lot of beautiful, nature hikes. I like to take my kayak out. I got a kayak that I'll take out every now and then and just kind of, unplug and float around and do stuff like that with my daughter. I like working out. I like running. Those are all things that I really enjoy. I'm a huge beer fan. I've got hops tattooed on my elbow. So that's Nick and I. Speaking of Nick, extra cooler.
Yep.
Um, you know, he's a huge beer guy too. So
Yes, he is.
really fun with him about that stuff. But yeah,
Awesome.
for me, it's mostly art, my business, and then just keeping the dream alive with the family and all that. So
Yeah, that's. Is there? Are you into like any sports stuff like
yeah,
that? Baseball,
I like
football.
football. Like I'm a football fan. Like my Bengals finally took home a win today against the Cardinals, so I'm really happy
Nice.
about that. Seahawks have been doing great. I've been really happy with their performance this past few games. It's going to be really tough next week when they face off against my boys in Cincinnati.
Yep.
But
Definitely.
so I love football. Baseball is always fun. Um, yeah, I got into hockey recently.
Okay.
Yeah, so segue. We have a great team out here called the Kraken, and NHL contacted me 8 months ago, I want to say, to work on a piece for their socials. And I've never really done like hockey art. Like I've done like football art through a sock company called Rock'em Socks. I've done basketball art. Basketball art is the one thing I'm like super excited about because I don't have to draw crazy helmets on everybody.
Yeah.
I can expressions and stuff like
Yep.
that. But hockey art, man, it's a different story because the main question I had for NHL was, hey, can I draw these guys without their helmets on?
Mm.
I want to be able to show personality and show, all that. So I've done 2 pieces for NHL so far. The second one is coming out in the next couple of days on their socials.
That's awesome.
So keep your eyes out. But yeah, sports art is another thing I like to dabble in every now and then.
How does that like happen? They you said they just reached out to you? They just seem like do they know of your artist work in sports and stuff like that, or
I'll
is
spell it out for you, man. Rasslin. That's how they found me.
that's crazy that we the a lot of the things that we I talk about on these shows and stuff like that, obviously wrestling being one of them. That's kind of like the ground or the blueprint, or the base of a lot of these conversations I like to have with everybody. But like it's just crazy to think that you don't think wrestling is with us, if you're being a wrestling fan, you think it's like the biggest thing in the world. Nothing tops it. I mean, because we look at the WWE, they're $1 billion company, they're global and all that stuff. But you don't think that outside of that, people are seeing those types of things and saying, "Hey, we want to be a part of that," or that looks cool. We should bring that into our realm. Like
There's
that's
fans everywhere. Like they're
it's
everywhere.
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's sports entertainment. So a lot of these people see what's done in the wrestling world, and I'm not saying they want to piggyback off of it, but they see that and they're like, "Oh, this guy can draw muscles. He's perfect for the
Yeah.
NFL." You know what I mean? So like, I started doing these socks for Rock'em where they just licensed a few of my WWE pieces, and then they came to me one day and they're just like, "Hey, man, it's COVID. You want to make some money?" And I'm like, yeah, what do you got for me? And they're like, we got about 90 athletes we want you to draw. So I'm like, cool. All right, let's do this. So I started tackling NFL players. Intertwined with that, Tops reached out to me and I did some MLB stuff for Tops for their digital
Awesome.
platform. And then I started doing NBA for Rock'em Socks. And then through that, I started to forge a relationship with my partners at Big Shots doing UFC dolls, like the pillows. The
Oh, I
pillow.
seen that. Yeah, yeah.
So it's
That's right.
like it's all just this amazing circle of stuff, and wrestling kind of gets you there. And who knows, man? There might be guys that start off doing NFL stuff where they see their stuff, and people in the wrestling world are like, hey, let's bring them in
Yeah.
this world. But for me, it's been really cool to see how guys like at the NHL, they will use a piece of wrestling art I did as reference for what they want for this NHL piece.
That's awesome.
I'm like, that's dope. That's awesome. Like, that's really cool how all that stuff happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's crazy. That's just crazy to think, like, the just see, like, the impact that, like I said, we kind of, like, as wrestling fans, we kind of live in a bubble, and we're like, we have our own thing, but it's crazy to think of, like, the the amount of, like, impact it has on the outside of wrestling, stuff like that, in sports. And obviously, there's athletes that are wrestling fans and all that type of stuff. You see it all the time. You'll see athletes show up at wrestling shows and things like that. So it's not far-fetched. It's just to think the executives are like the people that, like, the owners of, like, NHL and and the NBA and stuff like that. Like, those people are, like, looking at wrestling and going, hey, how can we do this? And I always credit Vince McMahon for starting the you know streaming boom, as far as, like, taking your own library and making an
Yeah.
app out of it. And because, like, WWE Network happens, then shortly after that, like, HBO wanted to do it, like, all these, like, movies companies started doing, like, hey, maybe we should do an app and stream
Yeah.
our own library. So, like, it does kind of make sense. Were
Now
there
we're
any
all broke. We're all broke now.
yeah, no, exactly, right. that's
We're all
that's
broke.
very true. Thanks, Vince. Thanks for starting the streaming boom for us. Were there any did you work with, like, obviously individual, like, wrestlers and stuff like that? Were there any Did you get to work with any athletes or anything like that with some of these things you worked
No,
on, or
no,
was it more straightforward?
athletes are such a different machine because if you work with wrestlers under the WWE banner, a lot of the upper echelon wrestlers have their own managers, like they have
Yeah,
people
that's
that
right.
manage their business for them. But with a company like the NFL, every single athlete's got a manager,
Hmm.
and these are like super high level guys, and there's a lot of oversight. So I've never dealt with an athlete directly. No, wrestlers are a different story. They're performers, man. They
Yeah.
when they case in point, like, let me just use Joe Burrow. Doesn't matter what you put out, as long as it's got his face and says Joe Burrow, it's going to make millions of dollars.
Yeah.
With an athlete like Finn or Edge or I don't know, even like Mercedes, they want to have direction into what you're creating for them, because that's integrated into their character. They want it to be representative of their character. You know what I mean? So it's a much different thing, man, with performers versus actual athletes.
Hmm.
It's a completely different ball game, man.
I'm surprised that, like, you don't get a lot of. Do you get any, like, MMA guys? Or, like, do
I
they reach
mean,
out to you or anything, or UFC or
well, I've done a
Bellator?
ton of stuff for UFC. Like I've done a ton of, like, we like Big Shots, for example. We
That's
have
right.
the
Yep.
we have the UFC license, so we've created, I want to say, close to 40 different fighters for the UFC. But those guys have much different back end deals than wrestlers do and that athletes do. Um, they want you to sell as many of these dolls as possible, so it raises their value in the eyes of the UFC management.
Okay.
Um, but no, I haven't gotten a lot of feedback or anything like that. Like, Conor McGregor is really high on our stuff. He really likes what we do.
Okay.
Um, and there's a few fighters that I met at the most recent UFC expo in Vegas that were really, really stoked on what we were doing. But no, UFC is a much different thing than WWE. I know they're the same company now, but it's much super different.
Yeah, I would have thought they would have had more, like, the fighters themselves are, like, more not freelance or anything like that, more like more free to do, like, their own
Not
Like no.
anymore.
Okay.
They used to be. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Yeah,
That
I've
makes
had
sense.
conversations with friends about that because they're talking about how they used to have like endorsements on their shorts and stuff like that. But UFC put a stop to that, and once they had their own like fighting gear and all of that.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot
Yeah,
they did that. And obviously now it's gonna be a lot harder with the merger that
yeah,
happened.
yeah.
Do you
They have a lot of say in like pretty much everything with UFC. They're very much hands on.
That's crazy. Do you see any do you see yourself working for like not working, sorry, like working with like TKO, not like WWE, but like has that like crossed your mind at all that like at some point when you're doing these like licensing things, it
Hmm.
might be, not a WWE specific thing. It might just be, TKO because he had Nick Khan did an interview recently saying like they might do like a TKO weekend where it's like, a
Oh yeah.
UFC event, a Saturday night, and then Sunday night, a WWE pay per view. And like you might get a call, like you said, with like results might call you and say, hey, the TKO weekend's coming up. What do you have? What do you have for UFC whatever and
Oh,
WWE that like
I get that all the time. So to give you an idea of what the world of a freelance artist is like working for licensees, every shirt I design for SummerSlam, for example, I'm doing during WrestleMania. Like that's how
okay,
far in
wow,
advance they want you to do things for them to like get the product ready to go.
wow, that's
So
crazy.
so case in point, anything WrestleMania related, I'm working on like around Survivor Series time. So there's a lot of lead time for stuff like that. There's been a couple times, it's usually from WWE corporate where I'll have to do something kind of last minute, like make like a last minute change or adjustment to something that they want to roll out like pretty quickly.
Yeah,
But dude, if TKO wanted to do like a bonkers like 4-day weekend,
yeah,
they don't even have to ask me. I'll just show up. That sounds like the most. I went to my first UFC fight in Vegas a few months ago.
yeah.
I have never had that much fun in my entire life. Like wrestling is so great and is such an experience, but going to a live UFC fight,
Oh, I
freaking
can't imagine.
nuts. It's absolutely nuts, man.
How many like celebrities have you seen when did you run bump into anybody? Did you see any celebrities out there when you at that UFC event?
Well, you can't really bump in anyone there because there's so much security. But
That is true. I didn't even think of that.
we were lucky enough to get some really good seats through Ghost Ninja. He's a streamer that does he does video gaming on Twitter.
Yeah,
So Ghost Ninja had some sort of like partnership deal with UFC, and he got a bunch of really cool seats. So we got this great area where we had the most perfect view of the octagon, and behind me was Rob. He's the guy from he does like there's like a putt putt show on NBC or ABC.
what is that called? Oh, what's his name?
Holy Holy Moly or something like that. He was also on the Daily Show. Rob something, and then Guy Fieri was like 4 rows in front of us, and that guy was the shiniest man I've ever seen in real. Like I don't know what moisturizer he uses. I don't know if he was like eating his own
That's funny.
product, but he was so shiny. But and then all the UFC fighters were out there promoting because it's during fight week. So you've got all these elite fighters kind of sitting like a few rows away watching all the action. So that was really cool to see too.
That's insane. Did you have you ever gone have you would you ever work in like the like movie realm, like doing like artwork for like not movie, I shouldn't should say, just like entertainment in general, just like movies, TV, that type of stuff. Has that ever come up, or is that have you ever thought of doing
Oh, I'd
anything in
totally
that
be
realm?
open to it. Yeah, I mean, I love movies. I mean, if you can't love wrestling and not love movies and TV,
True.
it's like same as comic books. It's all very tangential. So, I love movies. I love sci-fi. I love action. I've drawn multiple caricatures of my favorite, celebrities doing this, that, and the other thing. That would be a dream come true. Absolutely. Especially if it were animation. Like if I could have a hand in the design of something, like you just watch like Across the Spider-Verse and it's just like, oh my God, like the things they created for that and the vision that they had. It's absolutely nuts.
Yeah, all the different art styles within that movie too. Like it's not all the same artwork. Like it's all different. Like it's insane to just the amount of artists that they had on that movie it's ridiculous. Like every Spider-Man is a different type of art. Every like computer animation to like a real person. Essentially, that's how they pretty much did it. Like the craziest thing on that movie to me was when Gwen fights the Renaissance
the vulture.
vulture. Like it was drawn in Renaissance. Like the art style was running like it. That's crazy. That's like hard to fathom that you can actually see a movie nowadays where they can actually incorporate a different art style to interact with, some other type of art style. Because you would think like everything has to be the same. I mean, when it comes to art or on a movie anyway, or like in an animated movie, everything looks the same. You wouldn't think that each like her world is different from Miles. Like his world's more like vibrant. Her world looks more like almost like a painting. Like it's all like it's pretty it's insane. Like that aspect of it. Would you ever be a part of that process? Do you think you could like be a part of like a movie, like an animated movie process, like hand drawn like that? Like how would
I mean, I could certainly be a part of it. It's a matter of like the workflow for something like that's pretty intense. You have to spend a lot of man hours to make that stuff happen. And it's very collaborative. So you got to work with a ton of different people. I actually studied animation in college. So I studied 2D animation at the Savannah College of Art and Design.
Nice.
So the animation aspect, that's something I could definitely, ebb and flow with and make work. But man, you're asking a lot of interesting questions, and it gives me an opportunity to kind of expand upon the world of the working artists and what our expectations are and stuff like that. For a lot of people that have studied animation their entire lives, working on a Spider-Man film like that is a dream come true.
Yeah.
But they're also mentally and physically prepared to work like 70, 80-hour work weeks.
Yeah, that's right.
To get there. And I'm 42, man. Those years are behind me. Like I work hard and I play hard, but you can't convince me to do any job where I have to work more than 40 hours a week. That's not where my headspace is anymore.
Yeah.
But from a creativity standpoint, dude, just to be in a room with those guys and just to bounce ideas and sketches and like all these different concepts, man. Yeah. That's like being a kid in the candy store.
Yeah, I was watching Toy Story. Was it the Toy Story movie? Or was it Lightyear, the one that came out during like kind of like the pandemic.
Yeah.
And they had like the documentary on Disney Plus, and like just like you were talking, like a lot of that movie was done during the pandemic, so a lot of those people were remote. And that must have been hard, like not being able to, like you said, bounce ideas off of each other. Like you're sitting in your room doing the animation, and now you can have like a web call with someone and say, "Hey, I just did this," and how would you share? Like that must have been like the hardest thing to do, like to create a movie like that and not be able to interact with another artist to like feed off of what they were working on. I couldn't even imagine. But just seeing that process in general, and how just the animation, the ideas that go into it, and the ideas that these artists come up with, I think it's amazing to me to see that type of stuff. I'm very interested in that type of process when it comes to like creation, especially with art. I mean, it's one of those things that it's like, it's not that it's primitive. It's just art's been around since the beginning of time. So it's like, start like cave drawings on the wall. That's where it started.
Communication, and now communication. And to this day, it still is communication.
Yeah.
And that's the most powerful thing about art. It's not necessarily the process. It's not necessarily how the finished product ends up looking. It's what does that communicate to the viewer? Like,
Yeah.
what do they get from it? Like, what do they, that's why I said earlier, when I see someone embracing it and I see them wearing it, or I see them commenting on it, or I see that they're really into it, I'm like, okay, that's the communicative aspect of what I'm doing. And if you create a piece and you're not necessarily communicating to someone, then it's not necessarily a successful piece. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yep.
So, and that blame can be placed on the artist, can be placed on the wrestler, because they're the ones that are putting that idea out there. And there are tons of wrestling shirts that have flopped.
Yeah.
That's why you got to thank goodness for pro wrestling tees, because they print on demand. So they'll just put it all out there, and if people want to buy it, cool. And if they don't want to buy it, well, then that's that. I mean, think about how many shirts Kenny Omega's had that he hasn't sold. You know what I mean?
True. That is
There's
very
lots
true.
of designs out. So it's just like, so it really does fall on the artist in some instances to communicate those ideas in a manner that will really get the fans excited. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, I almost actually almost wore my the Bad News Brown shirt because I love that shirt. I got the T-shirt of it. I'm not sure if they did any other variation of it, like a sweater or anything like that, but I got the T-shirt. I just love it because it's like he looks like almost like a comic book. Like he almost looks like a superhero. He has like flames on his hands and stuff like that.
He's the Calvary's flame.
It's amazing. I was just like, oh man, it has the lettering is like, obviously there it's the like a variation of the SummerSlam logo and stuff like that. So that's just like that type of stuff right there. Like I said, I wear that shirt all the time too. I love that shirt.
Well, that idea was all Matt. That idea was Matt. Like Matt came up with it, and then I put it there, and then we just kind of jumped off, and communicated what we wanted. And that's why you should be excited when you get to have input on these logos with Nick, is because, sometimes us artists, we really do thrive off of direction.
Yep.
Because there are times when we're really creative on our own merits, but then there are times where we're working on something and we're basically the tool. We are there to implement the ideas. Yeah. So in the case of the Nation shirt, Matt just said, make something badass with the Nation. And I'm like, hell yeah, I got that covered. And then with Bad News, he was just like, this is my idea. Can you make that happen? And then he gave me direction on it, and that ended up becoming something really cool.
That's sick. I thought they were going to do I'm not sure if they did one, but I remember there was like one with Slick. But I don't think it was Andy.
I remember that. I didn't do that one. That was Redneck Kung Fu.
Oh man, that was a sick one, man. I like the fact that they do like we talked about this earlier. I like the shirts. You wouldn't necessarily the people you would necessarily see with merch at all, like a Bad News Brown, like Nation Domination. Like I said, they didn't really have anything slick. Didn't have a T-shirt. Like, is there any? I mean, obviously, if this is a secret, you can't say anything. That's fine. But like, are there any other pieces that they've reached out to you that that are going to be coming out, or any other? Because I might actually just reach out to you and just have you do one for me, because I have a sentimental, because I talked about this gentleman earlier, Junkyard Dog. So my father, huge fan. My father's from he's born in Mississippi, grew up in Arkansas, southern guy. He passed away 10 years. Actually, no, it's gonna be 13 years ago. But his favorite wrestler. I grew up watching mid South wrestling, because he's from the South. So that's what I started watching wrestling, like Butch Reed and Dusty Rhodes. Watching the Von Erichs and all that stuff. So like I watched Southern wrestling when I was little, and then I worked over to WWF at the time. But I was enamored with Junkyard Dog back then, and he's one of those guys that I always wanted to see, like, on a T-shirt. I know they do some merch sometimes, like WWE will roll like a Legend shirt, that type of thing. But I want not like a picture of him, like an actual picture. I'd rather see him like in the Bad News Brown type of like deal, like just like a badass, like, I don't know,
I
Because
did.
like
I
with
did
the
a
chain.
JYD. I did a
Oh, you did?
JYD for them. Yeah. Yeah, I did. I don't know. I don't know what they ended up doing with it, but I do know Matt has a JYD piece I did for him. Uh
Man.
they might, I mean, the thing is it's tricky because like when you deal with deceased wrestlers, you have to deal with the estate
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm not saying you have to deal with the estate. Like you have to like, you have to, even if it's like a bootleg or something that you're doing for the fans, you
Yeah.
gotta be respectful to the estate. So I don't know. I don't know what ended up happening with that. I did a Sasha Bianca shirt for WrestleMania 36 that they put out.
I remember that. I didn't get that one though. Yeah. I
Yeah,
remember seeing that though. That was awesome.
that was a like, hey, keep it on the DL kind of stuff. Like for
Yeah,
me, it's
yeah.
like, the way I consider it, it's like work for hire. So like they hire me
Yeah.
to do a drawing, and if they're the ones selling it, then that's on them.
Yeah.
That's the thing that they deal with. But I did that one, and then I did a JYD, and then after that, I ended up getting busy. They did a really cool Chris Bay one not too long ago
I
too.
seen that. Yeah, I
With
seen
like the
that one.
world in his hands.
Yeah, that's an
That was
awesome.
pretty
That was an
cool.
awesome one.
Yeah, I don't know how heavy they're getting into merch right now. I mean, speaking as someone that's gotten a few cease and desists in his
Yeah,
time.
I know. Yeah, I remember when I got this. Was it this one? Yeah, I think I got this shirt. This one.
Yeah,
They actually they sent well, they had like a little postcard with the
the cease
printed
and desist on it.
cease
Yeah,
and desist. I still have it. I have it. And I think on the flip side of it is the Sasha Banks uh Bianca Belair
I love
drawing that she
it.
did. So I have it. So I kept it. I was like, this is awesome. I didn't get the
That's a
merch, but
badge of honor right there, man. You should hang
no,
that
but
up
it's
on your fridge.
I like it. I like it because like, I'm glad they don't do like a lot of merch because it's like exclusive. It's like I
Yeah.
got this when it came out. Like I also have the they haven't released it, I don't think, since it's the Hogan
Oh yeah, with
with
the
the red
X.
X. Yeah,
Yeah,
I have the hoodie of that. And I have
yeah.
the t-shirt of it too. So I like never see it again. It's like a one of one type of thing that you'll never get from them ever again. So I take pride in owning those types of like that memorabilia anyway. So
I love it, man. It's like it like pays homage to like the old school culture of doing like bootleg shirts. You know what I mean? Like you go to like a hip hop show, or you go to like any like big show back in the day, and you wouldn't really care about the official shirts. You wanted to go get the bootleg shirts because those were always like the best looking ones, the best designs, and you
yeah.
knew that they were limited edition. I still remember buying bootleg shirts at Metallica shows. you know but like I love that. I love that idea, and that's kind of like the old school in me, where it's like, okay, it might not be on the up and up all the time, but it is fun to kind of dabble and have a little fun in that realm, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Have you done any? Have you done? I'm not sure if I asked you if you answered. Have you done any things for any like music artists or anything like that, or is that
No, I'd love
no?
to though. I would love to. Like I'm a huge music fan, so like I would love to do something for like my favorite bands. But I've done like pieces just for fun. Like I did like a really cool James Hetfield, and I did
Oh, that'd be sick.
Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age. I did stuff, but yeah, that would be really cool. Um, my buddy Juan from Of the Dead, he's done a lot of band shirts. It's kind of how he got his start, getting into doing shirt designs. That's why all of his shirts kind of look like they got the punk rock vibe. But yeah, I'd love to do some band stuff in the future.
Yeah, man, I'm actually like getting ideas in my head now. That I'm gonna I won't say them on the show. I'll say it off air. But actually, I have some ideas that I want to run across. But um, so what do you think what's the future of your brand? Where do you see yourself going? Is it something where you're just cool with what you're doing now, or is it do you do you want to take it like to a bigger level at some point?
Well, it's definitely changed over time. Like when I was doing mostly fan art, that was kind of my way of getting more gigs and doing more work. Now work is all I do, which is why I'm not as regular with like art posts and stuff like that, because it's
Yeah,
like, well, I got to wait until the thing comes out. I can't really hype it up.
yeah,
Um I'm really happy with where I'm at right now. Like big shots, for example, here's a Ric Flair. This is a licensed Ric
Yeah,
Flair.
I was eyeing that the whole time. That thing's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm partnered with these guys, Big Shots. It's a gentleman by the name of Adam Alson, and we do licensed wrestling buddies for UFC. Ric Flair, Mike Tyson, Jay and Silent Bob. Keep it on the DL, but we're going to be putting out Bret Hart one soon. That's going to be really
Nice.
cool. Hopefully in the next couple weeks here. And then that stuff I'm really stoked on right now. Like I'm really excited to like put my own stamp on it because that's like the caricature artist in me. It's like I get to design something from scratch. On top of that, I'm still freelancing for Roosevelt's every now and then, but I was talking to a friend of mine at Wrestle Dream. I showed him a list. One day I sat down and I made a list of all the wrestlers I've done stuff for.
Yep.
And I was looking at that list and I was like, damn, like I've done some cool stuff for like really high profile names. I probably only have maybe 4 or 5 more names on my bucket list.
Wow.
And then after that, who knows?
That's pretty much it after that.
Well, it's not. I'm not gonna throw in the towel and hang it up. but I'm not gonna be hitting it as hard, is what I'm saying. Like, I want to be able to hang my hat on all these other things that I did and just be like, okay, well, if I can do a few things for these wrestlers that I respect and admire, then I can say, okay, well, I got to do at least one thing for every wrestler that I grew up or that I currently love watching. And that right there for me, that's it. Like, I mean, who wants to do like 20 shirts of The Rock? Who wants to do 20 shirts of Bret Hart? You know what I'm saying? Like, if I can do that one Bret Hart shirt I always wanted to do, I'm going to do it. And then, if I can do that one Stone Cold shirt that I always wanted to do, I'll do that and then tap out. So I got a few more on the list. I'm not going to say who they are, but fingers crossed that it happens in the next couple of years. And then I can say, all right, if anything else comes up, great, I'll take it on. But I'm not going to actively seek out any more stuff. I'm just going to kind of ride it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
One more question before I let you go. So I always end the show off with this. If obviously if you're a wrestling fan, because I interview people that aren't wrestling fans, so I don't ask them this question. But if you are, I do ask you this. So I always go with a scenario where you have a friend that may have watch wrestling and then they kind of like grew up, didn't stop watching it, whatever, and they're kind of like a casual. So my question to you is, if you were to try to bring that person back into wrestling, whether it be golden age, attitude era now, what match would you show them? Actually, it would have to be now, technically. What match would you show them to bring them back into wrestling, to be that like, get their eye back on the product?
Oh man, that's hard. Okay. There's 2 different levels to it, okay, man?
Okay.
There's the entertainment aspect and then there's the storytelling aspect. From an entertainment aspect, I would probably show them any match with the Lucha Bros and the Young Bucks and FTR if they're in the mix. I don't know how many matches they've all done at the same time, but I just recently watched the Bucks go up against like 3 other teams at Wrestle Dream.
Yep.
And that was so damn exciting and so much fun. And you didn't have to know anything about anyone. You just watched it and you were just like floored. None of it made any sense.
Yeah.
But it was like so much fun to watch. You know what I mean? So there's that for that. And then, I mean, if I'm going recently, Zayn and Reigns at Elimination Chamber.
Yeah.
Is probably, and that's strictly for storyline purposes because they show you the whole package of the year leading up to it.
Yep.
So like I have a friend, actually, his name's Ted, And I remember watching Sammy and the Bloodline with him. And I was telling him, I was like, dude, this is long form storytelling. This at its finest. This is like a year-long story, and it's all culminating. And so I think I would probably show them that match, not based off the merits of the match itself, but the storytelling that led up to it.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's man, I took my son to Survivor Series in Boston when they did the first ever War Games on Survivor Series. And that was like the pinnacle of obviously the whole, Bloodline storyline with all of them together and all that stuff. And he was like freaking, he was that brought him into like, I mean, Roman Reigns pretty much brought him into watching wrestling.
Yeah.
But like, just being able to see like that whole thing, because he watched on YouTube, they still have it up there. You can watch like, it's like a 2 hour like Bloodline movie pretty much. And like, it's literally all the segments from 2020 when Roman Reigns returns all the way up to, I think, up to WrestleMania when the Usos are going to face Sammy and KO. So literally all those segments, it's about 2 hours and 20 minutes of like the whole, and it's literally a movie. Like you could sit there and just watch it like it's a movie. It is weird because you see the, the Thunderdome and the, the crowdless stuff, but that's the beautiful part of it, is that's where that whole like, that's where they were able to express their, artistic integrity. Essentially, that's where they were able to, be able to develop those characters. Who's to say, that storyline would have like been better was if there was
who would have known, man.
prison.
Like I wish I could have been a fly in the wall when that whole storyline was kind of presented. You know what I mean? Because like, Roman took that 6-month break.
Yep.
And then came back full on.
Yeah.
And it never ended where they had intended. Like it was like its own thing. But I wish I could have been a fly on the wall when like Paul Heyman, like I could just imagine him just saying, "Okay, everybody, we have this champion, and he's going to be champion for 3 years." And then like he's going to squash everyone that comes his way, but somehow still elevate them. And then the whole story with Jay. Like the whole abusive relationship, and then like it all builds Jay up to be like the only guy that's pinned Roman.
Yep.
Now he's main event Jay, and now he's currently tag champions with Cody.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Jimmy now is like going nuts. I just think it's so intriguing, and everything Sammy did with them, I loved it. I'll tell you what, during Survivor Series when Sammy did the
the four.
I was like, yes, this is so cool.
So before I let you go, just to get to the Paul Heyman did an interview. I forget what he did a podcast. I forget what podcast it was, but he actually talks about that whole, the whole inception of the Bloodline storyline and what happened, and what happened with Roman when Roman took off and was like, obviously with the COVID stuff and him having his immune system's kind of compromised in that sense. He wanted to be protect his health, but at the same time, Paul Heyman said he was like pretty much done. Like he was like done with like his character. Like he wasn't happy with what they were doing with like the Roman Reigns character. Blah blah blah. So he said he got a call from Vince McMahon. And Vince said, "Hey, Paul, do you want to come back and manage somebody?" And then Paul Heyman was like, "I don't know who the hell you're going to put me with, because like, Brock's not coming back. He's pretty much like he's done with, like after that WrestleMania." He's like, I couldn't even imagine who he was going to put me with. And then he said, Vince McMahon goes, "What do you think about you teaming up with Roman Reigns?" And he was like, "Oh, okay, that will work." And then hence you see that SmackDown episode with Roman Reigns sitting down.
Dude, that was incredible.
Camera pans over, and so as much as the moral of my story is, as much shit people want to give Vince McMahon, you can thank him for the Bloodline storyline.
No, listen, he might not listen to most people's ideas, and he might not listen to like what a lot of people say, and he might have some dumb ideas, but he's also got the clackers to come up with crazy ideas and go for it, because he knows what's going to happen. Nothing. He's not going to lose money on it.
True.
He just sold his company for $9 billion to TKO.
Yep.
Like, it's one of those things where as a business person myself, you want to take risks because even if you do fail, you learn. You know that,
Yep.
okay, well, I won't do that again. And you know, for better or for worse, people might perceive you to be the fool for making a mistake, but they're technically the ones that are the fools because listen, they didn't have the gumption or the gall to do it on their own, you
Yeah.
know? So it's
Yep.
like better to fall on your face, pick yourself up and learn from it and move forward than to never have tried at all. So yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, he's a creepy dude. Let's not,
Let's not forget that. Yeah, let's
but
not forget that aspect.
at least the man has the guts to like take risks. And
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what the phone call was like with Roman, where Roman's just like, dude, the only way this is gonna work is if I'm heel,
Yeah. Yep.
you
And
know?
even Paul Heyman was like, I don't. He's like, you want me to work with Roman? Like, I don't like. He's a good guy. I don't know how it's gonna like pan out. And then Vince was like, no, he's gonna be a bad guy now. He's gonna be a heel, and they like you said, they were lucky they didn't have a crowd. That's the whole thing. Like, I think
Yeah,
it actually probably would have worked if they did have it because they were booing him anyway.
it
So
would have
like,
it would have worked just fine. I
yeah,
mean, I think the Thunderdome was a good thing because you're able to like show more emotion and they're able to like workshop stuff. And like even Hell in a Cell with Jay, like just
oh,
them crying in the ring, like I couldn't believe I was seeing that on a wrestling show. You know what I
Oscar
mean?
worthy right there.
It was
Oscar
incredible.
worthy acting
Yeah, it's
from
incredible, man.
from Roman. But this was awesome, dude. This was a great interview. I mean, you're amazing, dude. Like just your story, the things you accomplished since with with your artwork and stuff like that. Like I said, I'm one of those people. Like I'm excited when I see like you know someone that I'm watching from afar,
Yeah, yeah,
just be successful. Like I mean, we're not like close friends or anything like that, but just seeing just seeing your growth, like just following your page for so long and seeing like the different and you telling me all the the different people you interacted with and all the different things you've done is like it's inspiring to me anyway to like do what I do, and I'm hoping like if people listen to this episode they get inspired as well. But I
well, you're
definitely want
doing
to
the
thank
thing,
you.
man. You're doing the thing. It's like the secret sauce is communication. It's like
Yep.
I was talking about that with artwork, but the secret sauce really is if you want to be successful in anything, build relationships, grow relationships, create a positive environment, shake off any of the negativity,
Yeah.
and then just keep pushing forward, man. Like I've seen some stupid, ridiculous stuff myself, and I just throw it all out there and focus
Yeah.
on things that are good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You want to surround yourself with like-minded people, as they say. Like
Yeah,
nothing that's gonna deter you. The only thing that's gonna, like you said, the only thing that's gonna stop you is yourself from not even, going forth and doing it.
yeah.
And that's I mean, that's where I was at with this. I was kind of, just talking to Sheena Chick Foley saying like, I want to do this, but it's kind of I'm gonna be by myself. I don't have you or
Right.
Seth or anyone else to lean on. We're all bouncing ideas off each other, and we do a
But
podcast with like I'm doing it with 3 other people, so it's easier that way. But like when you jump in by yourself, it's a little bit different. So especially with like I'm talking to people I'd never talked to before, so that's another like wild
well,
aspect.
you're
That's
doing it,
why
man.
I want to do it. So
No,
yeah,
you're totally doing it, and I wish you nothing but the best. I think it's going to be amazing.
yeah, thank you, man. But before we go, well, I mean, obviously you can tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, yeah. So the main way you can find me is on Instagram. My handle is Nolanium, Nolanium, as in mother. That's where I put a lot of my content. I'm also on Twitter every now and then, but that house is kind of crumbling apart, so I don't really go
Yes.
on there nearly as much as I used to. And then I'm also on Facebook, Nolanium Art, facebook.com/Nolanium Art. I'm always updating. I'm always posting things that I'm working on, especially in my stories more often than not. And I'm always here if you have questions. I'm not currently taking commissions, but if you are a fellow artist and you have questions about what I do or how to kind of get your foot in the door, I can help steer you in the right direction. So that's one thing I
Awesome.
take a lot of pride in.
Awesome. And we'll end it there. Again, thank you for joining. And yeah, we'll see you. We'll see everyone next time. Thank you for listening on this audio journey, as I like to say. Peace out, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Marco.
Thank you.